History is filled with heroes. We know their names, we see their statues, but what if the most important hero is someone you've never heard of? What if the man who single-handedly prevented World War III died in obscurity? His story almost lost to time. This is the story of that man. On a September night in 1983, the fate of the world rested on his shoulders. He was faced with a choice that, honestly, no human should ever have to make. A choice between following orders and trusting his gut. A choice that could have ended civilization as we know it. His name was Stanislav Petrov. He wasn't a general, he wasn't a politician. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Air Defense Forces. His job was to monitor his country's early warning satellite system. He was the gatekeeper, the first line of defense against a nuclear attack from the United States. His duty was clear: report incoming missiles up the chain of command immediately. That report would trigger a massive retaliatory nuclear strike, a strike that would have been irreversible. It was a job with zero room for error. To understand the weight of his decision, you have to understand the time. Deep inside a secret bunker south of Moscow, Stanislav Petrov began his shift. The facility was called Serpukhov-15. It was the command center for the Soviet Union's OKO nuclear early warning system. This was the nerve center designed to give the Kremlin its first notice of an American nuclear launch. Petrov was the duty officer, in charge of a team of over 100 men. He was an analyst, not a combat soldier. His expertise was in interpreting data and understanding the complex technology that was supposed to protect his homeland from a surprise attack. It was a heavy responsibility. The atmosphere in the bunker was always tense. The air was thick with the hum of computers and the quiet anxiety of the Cold War. The men inside knew their mission was critical. They were trained to follow protocol without question. The system was designed to be foolproof, a technological shield against the ultimate threat. The instructions were simple and absolute. If the satellites detect a launch, you report it. There was no room for interpretation or doubt. The process was meant to be swift, to give Soviet leaders the maximum amount of time to launch their own missiles before the American ones arrived. Petrov, however, was different. He had helped design the very system he was now monitoring. He understood its intricacies, but he also knew its potential flaws. Just after midnight, the unthinkable happened. A piercing siren shattered the tense silence of the bunker. A massive screen in front of Petrov flashed a single terrifying word: launch. The system was reporting that a single nuclear missile had been launched from a base in the United States and was heading toward the Soviet Union. The room froze. Every eye turned to Petrov. Protocol demanded he pick up the phone and report the launch. That single phone call would set in motion the gears of nuclear war. The world held its breath, and it didn't even know it. Petrov hesitated. Something felt wrong. A first strike from the United States would not begin with a single missile. A real attack would be overwhelming. It would involve hundreds, if not thousands, missiles launched simultaneously. One missile seemed illogical. It felt more like a system malfunction than an act of war. He told his team to remain calm and to check their systems. He needed more information before he made a call that would doom the world. He was betting everything on a hunch. Then the situation escalated dramatically. A second alarm went off, then a third, a fourth, and a fifth. The system's confidence level ratcheted up to its highest level: missile strike. The red warning lights were flashing, the sirens were wailing, his subordinates were shouting at him, urging him to report the attack. Every second of delay reduced his country's ability to strike back. The pressure was immense, almost inhuman. Every instinct of his training told him to report the attack. His military duty required it. The men under his command expected it. The system, which he had helped create, was screaming at him that the attack was real. But Petrov's analytical mind fought back. 5 missiles still seemed like too few for a genuine first strike. He had to make a choice. Trust the multi-billion ruble computer system or trust his own gut feeling. He had only a few minutes to decide. The fate of every person on the planet depended on what he did next. With the alarms blaring and his staff in a panic, Stanislav Petrov made his decision. He did not pick up the phone to the Kremlin. He picked up the phone to the duty officer at Soviet military headquarters. He reported a system malfunction. He told them the alarms were false. It was a monumental gamble. If he was wrong, the first American missiles would detonate on Soviet soil in just a few minutes. He would be responsible for failing to warn his country. His decision was not based on concrete evidence. It was based on what he called a funny feeling in my gut. He knew the satellite system was new and had its bugs. Ground-based radar had not picked up any corroborating evidence. The satellite's objects were not missiles. They were sunlight glinting off high-altitude clouds. Petrov had been right. His gut feeling, his understanding of the system's limits, his courage to question authority had saved the world. There was no attack, there would be no retaliation. World War III had been averted not by a president, not by a general, but by a lone officer in a bunker who chose to do nothing. You might expect Stanislav Petrov to have been hailed as a hero. He wasn't. His actions exposed a critical flaw in the Soviet Union's prized early warning system. They praised his decision but also reprimanded him for not correctly filling out the logbook during the crisis. Petrov's story was classified as a state secret. No one spoke of it. He was eventually reassigned and retired to a modest life, struggling with health and finances. It wasn't until after the fall of the Soviet Union that his story slowly began to emerge. A Soviet general mentioned the incident in his memoirs. Western journalists eventually tracked Petrov down. He was a reluctant hero, insisting he was just doing his job. He received several international awards, including the World Citizen Award. Yet even then, his story remains largely absent from mainstream history. It is a footnote, a forgotten moment of unbelievable courage. The lesson from Stanislav Petrov's story is more relevant today than ever. It teaches us that true bravery is not always about following orders. Sometimes it is about having the courage to question them. Sometimes it is about challenging the system when you know it is wrong. Petrov was not a rebel, but he was a critical thinker. He understood that technology can fail and that human judgment, with all its flaws, is sometimes our last and best defense. His story is a powerful reminder that one person's quiet decision to refuse to panic, to think instead of react, can change the course of history. Sometimes the bravest act is refusing to follow the system blindly.